I would like to welcome you today at our Interassociation PR and Marketing Committee. I appreciate your attention and your time to join us today. I would like to introduce myself in case you don't know me. My name is Anna Sverdlova, and I'm co-founder and managing partner of Geran Partners. I'm also executive director of Interassociation PR and Marketing Committee. We have here our great partners, Alex Grishin, Regional Director of CERBA, Katerina Rodziska, Polish Business Club in Moscow. Katerina, if you can raise your hand, here she is.
Hello. Good to see you. Thank you very much for coming. We hope that today's meeting will bring something new and useful for your companies and brands.
Good. Next to Katerina, we have our wonderful speaker, Gareth Brown, media consultant. We will give the floor to Gareth a little bit later. Marina Tatarskaya. She is PR director of FEDINI Russia and also the head of communications and PR committee of Association of European Business. For the first time, we have AIB as our partners. Traditionally, we were CERBA and Polish Business Club. So we welcome our new partners. I would also like to welcome our next speaker, Andrey Zyryanov. He's Senior Director of Government Relations of McDonald's Russia.
Hello. Nice to be with you. Thank you.
So let me announce just a few organizational issues which I would like to raise. First, once again, would like to pay your attention that we would like to have Q&A session, and we would like to have conversation and dialogue between our participants. So we would really appreciate that if you can identify your real name in the list of attendees. So if you can change your name there to a family name and first name. Also, we organize a quick research at the moment, which is dedicated to the today's topic. Let me remind you, it is effective communication and budget priorities during a pandemic. Very soon in our chat, I will send you the link to this questionnaire. So if you can please, either during this meeting or after, fill out the form and participate in our research, that would be great. We will share the results of this research with all the participants of today's meeting. And as for our program, just a couple of words. After welcoming remarks of our organizers, we will have 10-12 minutes presentation of Gareth Brown and Andrey Zyryanov, and then we will have the session of Q&A. We will also have the comments of Marina Tatarskaya, and it would be very interesting to learn about her experience with AIB and with her professional activities at FEDINI Russia. Then also we're going to have a culture program. As you may know, in the offline format, we would usually have cultural activities after the official program. So this time we're going to have experiment. Please excuse us if there will be something unusual, but we wanted to try a new experience and organize online virtual excursion of the artist, a very famous Russian artist, Nikolay Kuznetsov. the exhibition is taking place at the Russian Gallery in Petrovka, but you will learn more a little bit later. So please join us for this cultural tool if you have time and interest. It will be a nice added value to today's meeting.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to see, even if it is virtual meeting today, and great to be with extended PR and communication community today. And I'll be happy to deliver a little bit what we've been living and doing as IUB PR committee and my personal experience at Ferrero later when we have my turn, and looking forward to have great journey professional cultural today with you.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you very much. Okay, we can start, I guess. Once again, we are going to send the link to the research which is taking place right now. Please, respected attendees, take your time to fill out the form. Now, I assume that many of you agree with me that we live in a very interesting time. We try to adapt to a new reality, and from what I can see around, there are basically two major approaches. One is that to adapt, okay? So one is that you consider the situation as some kind of the end of the world, and you know, unfortunately, we can see some pretty pessimistic views and ideas about what's going on and what will be in the future, in the near future. Another approach is that you try to adapt to new circumstances, acknowledge the fact that unfortunately it will take a long period of time, and that's the reality which we all have to use to, and that's reality that should be considered as the opportunity to learn something new, I don't know, become better, change the habitual way of thinking to something more reasonable and viable to new circumstances. So I would like to give a floor to Gareth Brown and see, you know, what is your point of view?
Hello, good morning. Здравствуйте. This is my first kind of mass Zoom meeting. I don't know if you've seen the presentation I put together, the short slide, or if people are available to see that.
We'll turn it on in a minute.
Yeah, so if we can, I tried to keep this as simple as possible because of the limits of technology. What we do know is, if we start with this slide, Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And if we look through the next examples, if you go to the next page, please. You know, I used to work with Nestle in Russia for several years, like 10 years. And what's interesting about Nestle is they actually grew during both of the world wars. They would have survived about 10 or 12 recessions since then. And they took the opportunities to actually grow during, you know, the greatest crises we've ever seen in Europe and worldwide with the Second War. We go to the next slide. And then Coca-Cola as well has survived, you know, more than 100 years by being incredibly consistent. Again, they famously grew in the Second World War. The American government helped them to spread globally, so they took, you know, what was an appalling situation to their advantage. Wrigley is another American company that continued to expand and grow through crisis. Next slide, please. Heineken, I don't think have ever been in Russia, interestingly. And the head of Heineken, who I worked with in Poland, he'd come from Africa, where they've always been very successful. And again, this is a company that has, you know, expanded globally across wars, different markets, been through many crises, and has yet continued to expand marketing, distribution in very difficult circumstances. And the next slide. And then IBM, who my brother works for, Industrial International Business Machines. I think the I is in international, not industrial. They were a company that started making computers, but more recently they've switched into services as they found that making the hardware doesn't make them money. They've been through, rather strangely, they also took advantage of World War II to supply both sides of the conflict. They've adapted over time, they've changed considerably and remain one of the largest companies in the world. And the next slide. Disney is one of my favorite examples. This is a company that used to just be about cartoons and theme parks. And they were in real crisis in the 80s. And yet they've changed dramatically in the last few years. They've acquired companies such as Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, and one of their greatest revenue generators is actually ESPN, their sports network in America, because people, as we've seen in the crisis, one of the first things to come back has been the football. The tennis is on at the moment in Paris, and people seem to need their sport. So Disney's gone from being like a two-horse race with just cartoons and theme parks into being all over the place with shops and Star Wars. So they've managed to expand to become a very successful company. That if one of their films, they did a film called John Carter that was a complete $200 million fiasco that made no money, but they're making $1 billion with each Avengers movie. So they've been able to adapt and change through the crisis. In the past, a lot of the movies they made in the 1930s, you know, the Aladdins, the Sleeping Beauties, the Snow White, they didn't actually make money until the 50s and 60s. So they had a long-term plan. Next slide, please. So, as has already been said, you need to adapt in this situation. Nokia was a company that had survived, you know, since the last century, started making rubber boots, moved into telecoms, but then they failed to understand the changing landscape with smartphones. So eventually they died because they kind of stopped innovating. So don't be like Nokia. And then the next slide. So the thing to remember, because I worked in advertising and marketing, is we're not actually selling products. And that's the mistake. So short term, we're not going to sell because of the crisis, unless you're in a category like, you know, foods. Certainly the airlines are probably the biggest hit. What we are doing is actually building brands. And if you build a brand, as we saw with Wrigley and Coke through the wars and Nestle, you know, the brand will survive. Crisis is an opportunity because, as we saw in '98 in Russia with the great financial crisis, and I saw again in Turkey in their financial crisis, is that it will never be cheaper to build brands than at this moment. And then you need to adapt and change, see what the opportunities are. So to be a Disney, not a Nokia. So to always look out for the opportunities. Okay, I think that's the final slide. Yeah. So come back to me. So what I've seen, firstly in Russia in '98, and prior to that I was in Poland, which was a rapidly growing market. And then in Turkey in 2001 with their crisis. And then again in 2008 when we had the global financial crisis, which was, you know, a catastrophe in many markets, is the companies that stay involved, that continue to invest, and that understand we're building brands for the long term, that some of the most successful brands, you know, are over 100 years old, that this may seem like a crisis now, but it's only been 6 months. You know, the Second World War was 6 years. That if we continue to invest and look to the future, and ultimately we have to be optimists, because if you're not an optimist, then really you shouldn't be in business, and certainly you shouldn't be in business in Eastern Europe. Okay.
Okay, Gareth, a quick question to you. So do you think that, you mentioned about Eastern Europe, do you think that we are more accustomed to be during the crisis than any other part of the world?
Not than any other part of the world. South America's been through many crises. Certainly Argentina has. In Asia, certain markets like Indonesia, the Philippines have always been very unpredictable. Africa, you know, as I said with Heineken, Heineken's been very successful in Africa because they've got people who, you know, are used to having a crisis. Unilever are very involved in India because of Hindustan Lever. So India's always been, you know, you've seen markets with, you know, high inflation, unpredictable, you know, currency, difficulties with logistics. So it seems to be these international companies like the Unilevers, the Nestle's, the Coca-Colas, who appreciate that, you know, the world is not a simple place, and that they've been able to change and adapt in various ways. I don't think Eastern Europe is particularly, you know, immune. It's more about the stability of North America and Western Europe are the unusual places. Most of the world, you know, from like Mexico all the way South America, Africa, Asia, is unstable.
So what would be your recommendation about, from the communication point of view? What should we do now?
Be consistent. I mean, what's interesting watching television is you've got the food companies continuing to advertise, and the beer companies in Poland seem quite active because people, you know, still need to drink beer and alcohol during the crisis. And if you look at Wrigley as an example, Wrigley, you know, chewing gum, they practically own the market, but they continue to advertise even when they've got 100% of every market. And the head of Wrigley was asked this, you know, why do you continue to advertise when you own the market? And he said, we're sitting on a train doing 100 miles an hour. Do you suggest we detach the engine? Meaning that, you know, you continue to invest in your brand even when you've got no competition. And so these companies have continued to invest in their brand, because I think the mistake people have made the last sort of 10 years with the internet and digital is they think that advertising is about selling, which it isn't. Advertising is about building brands and getting people to pay more for what is essentially the same product. So if you look at Philip Morris as a cigarette company, they have local brands and they go up to Marlboro and premium with Parliament in Russia. What they're doing is they're getting people to pay more for the more expensive brands because it costs them the same to produce and distribute these cigarettes. It's the same with airlines, with economy, business class, first class. It's the same with the car companies from Skoda to Volkswagen to Audi to Porsche. It's the same gearbox, it's the same car, but people pay more because of the brand. So what we are doing is building brand, and that takes decades and up to 100 years. So we should continue to invest in building our brand because that is where the profit lies.
You know, a couple of months ago, we had another session of this kind, and we had one of the speakers who would talk about the fact that right now we are going through some kind of shock, and people have never faced it before, and now this is not the right time to sell your services or your products. That is the right time to sort of position yourself as a company which helps people. And you should dedicate more attention to corporate social responsibility and to demonstrating your intention to assist people around you, rather than concentrate on selling your services or products. So what would be your comment on that?
Well, as I say, I don't believe we're selling anyway. I believe in building brands, which is about creating a personality. I'm not a huge believer in corporate social responsibility. I've never seen any evidence that anyone believes it. You know, Google, for instance, says do no evil and yet continue to do evil. Unilever put dolphins on their logos. I've never seen any evidence that that's persuaded people to buy anything. You know, I think we should continue to do what we did, which is to build brands. You look at companies like Wrigley and Coke, Danone, Nestle, they continue to advertise, they sell their products. Don't panic. I mean, the world will still be here. People still need, unless you're in the airline business, I think they're the ones who are truly in trouble. But everyone else, the world goes on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Gareth, thank you very much. I'm sure that our audience has lots of questions. We will come to that a little bit later. Now I would like to give the floor to Andrey Zyryanov. He's got very interesting experience. And, you know, at the time when we were discussing the possibility of his participation in our meeting, we discussed a very interesting point of Andrey, that right now we are like at war. With all the circumstances related to the speed of life, impressions, new approaches to accept the reality, meeting new day, and so forth. So, Andrey, what is your point of view? What do we do now?
Доброе утро, уважаемые коллеги, дорогие друзья. Меня хорошо слышно? Do you hear me? Yes? Is it?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to participate in your club. It's my first experience to be with you, and it's a great experience for me. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Gareth, for the brilliant presentation. I definitely agree with many of your statements, with the line of your logics. Gareth mentioned that crisis is an opportunity. That is the main thesis of what I would also like to share today. And Gareth mentioned that it's during the crisis times, it's cheaper to advertise. I totally agree with this approach, and my professional career has also made me a believer that crisis is not that much about issues, but more about opportunities, with some disclaimers that we will look at afterwards. With my professional experience, I would also like to extend the statement and confirm that the crisis is more efficient cost-wise, not only to advertise, but to achieve goals in other areas and functional activities. As I'm not a PR or marketing person, yes, I used to work mainly in supply chain and GR. And would like to give some examples from those areas of responsibilities. During my work at McDonald's, the 12 years, I experienced two fundamental crises. The first one was in 2014, when I was supply chain director and looked at the crisis mainly from the purchasing perspective. You probably remember those complicated years. In March 2014, right after the Crimea events, we analyzed geopolitical situation within our company and got to understand that restrictions of international trade were highly likely. Basically, our company, we were quite well prepared for it, because in the previous years, we implemented the strategy of localizing purchasing of food and packaging, and increased the share of local supplies from 52% to 98%, which is within our McDonald's system is a kind of a record. Yes, in no other country we have such a high level of localized supplies. But at the same time, we were aware that some of raw materials or ingredients or components or spare parts that were used for our core business activities continue to be imported. I don't know if you are aware about it, but in McDonald's we have quite a unique system of relationship with suppliers. We have a kind of a partnership approach, which among other things means open book understanding, so the possibility to see the major fundamental cost drivers to reveal them. And thanks to this approach, we managed together with our suppliers to conduct a deep analysis of potential risks of all those components or raw materials that continue to be still imported from Western Europe or North America. And we set to ourselves a task to urgently take some actions to find contingency supplies from either from Russia or from other countries that were less risky from geopolitical point of view. And it gave good result. As we expected in August 2014, the Russian government imposed embargo to import agricultural goods and products from majority of the Western countries. And thanks to those anticipatory actions that we did in the previous months, we managed to avoid stock out or issues with supplies to our stores, to 500 stores that we had at that time in Russia. And I need to admit that not all the operators of food service were doing so well, because probably they didn't do this homework in the previous months. And some of them had to either reduce their menu variety or even to stop sales at all due to the shortage or interruptions of supplies. And from the communication standpoint, this activity gave us an opportunity to strengthen our reputation in the eyes of our customers. And as we also talk today about budget, about financial part of the activities, I need to say that this saving of our operations allowed our suppliers to maintain or sometimes even increase volumes of sales to McDonald's. And at the same time, so it gave us an opportunity to keep or sometimes even improve our purchasing prices. So we managed to stay in a kind of a safe harbor when the market was passing through a perfect storm situation. After some time later, after that crisis, I moved from supply chain to GR function within my company. And so this year, when we met the new COVID crisis, I was already in the GR jacket. So I look at this crisis mainly from the GR standpoint. From my point, actual COVID crisis is definitely much more global, more complex than the one that we passed through 5 years ago. And the crisis gave definitely a lot of opportunities. We had several interesting and important breakthroughs during the last 6 months. But as majority of the participants are from communications and PR area, I'd like to give just one case as an example, which is more in the area which is on the verge of PR and GR activities. In 2019, we conducted a survey related to perception of our brand by different groups of respondents. Previously, we did similar surveys, but usually from just customer point of view. Now, in 2019, for the first time, we did it from the perspective of GR stakeholders. The study revealed a lot of interesting facts that we previously probably had guessed, but could not specify or digitize. For example, the survey showed that perception of our brand by ordinary customers and by the government authorities often do not coincide, or sometimes they're completely opposite. In particular, the study showed that most reserved, or I'd say wary, attitude towards our brand was shown by the medical community, and even more specifically by the medical employees in the regions of Russia. The result of this survey and this statement was quite unexpected for us, because our charity activities of McDonald's in Russia for many years were mainly aimed at the medical sector. About 10 years ago, for example, we opened in Kazan a charity house that provides accommodation to the parents of children that stay in hospital for a long time. The house is rather large. It provides accommodation to more than 20 families at a time, so it is quite an expansive project. And at the same time, mm, we see that the expenses that we provided for this project are completely borne by the company. Nevertheless, we were negatively surprised to know that the medical community of Tatarstan knew it, but all the rest of the regions were not aware about it at all. Given that we operate in almost 60 regions of Russia, the percentage of knowledge of this CSR activity was rather low. So when the COVID crisis started more than half a year ago, we as a socially responsible company could not be indifferent to the public needs. I'm sure that like many other companies that are present today, as it was part of the GR activities, first of all, we turned to the federal and regional healthcare authorities and asked them about their needs. Parallel to this, we analyzed the areas where we, as a company, based on our professional skills and background, can be mostly helpful to the medical community and to the people who were touched by the crisis. You also might know that there was a wave of restrictions introduced to food service. For example, we could not operate in the lobbies of stores and could provide service to the customers only via delivery or drive-through. So as a result of this brainstorming that we conducted, we decided to provide free meals to ambulance staff using our Makauto service window. We also understood that the action should be easy, simple, least bureaucratic. So we agreed that no papers, no reports, financial reports should be done, and that just an ambulance vehicle would be a kind of a passing code to provide meals to the visitors. During the 2 months that the action was active, we provided more than 500,000 sets of free meal to ambulance staff in all 59 regions where we operate. And as a result, we are very pleased that this activity has been successful from all the angles. And we see that it was very well perceived by the medical authorities. We received a bulk of thank you letters from governors, from healthcare ministers, and from ordinary medical employees across the country. And now we want to repeat the survey that we did last year. And the preliminary information already shows that there has been a dramatic improvement of perception of our brand among those medical people who until recently were the main rejectors of our brand in the regions. Again, as we're talking today about cost optimization of the activities, I can say that our expenses related to this initiative were significant, but reasonable, I'd say. They have been much more reasonable than the expenses that we would have to bear to achieve a similar result during the peaceful times and via ordinary PR activities. So in summary, I'd like to confirm the statement of Gareth and my previous statement that crisis is really an opportunity, but of course it is subject to the number of disclaimers. I assume that a crisis is a good opportunity, but it is relevant to the strong companies and to the strong managers. And the crisis management is especially effective when it is based on the well-prepared anticipatory work and when it is part of a long-term strategy. I'm sure that majority of the participants of today's session belong to this circle, so I suggest we should not be afraid of the crisis to come, but be ready to make use of it in our professional favor.
Well,
I
Andrey,
hope I have not exceeded much my agenda, yes, and I'll be happy, yes, to answer the questions if there are some.
Andrey, thank you very much for your great presentation. Just a quick question to you. You mentioned that it's a good time for strong brands. Obviously, I totally agree with that. But I understand that McDonald's works a lot also with the small businesses. At least, you know, your suppliers are not necessarily huge international companies. You have local partners as well. So, what would be your recommendation if you can, yeah, to small business companies, because we are a small business ourselves, so we have a number of companies here as attendees which are small business. So what would be your recommendation?
We work with a number of suppliers. As I said, I used to work as supply chain director. We mainly work with the suppliers of this, so to say, semi-processed food, and because of the specifics of our work in the restaurants, we need to have semi-prepared foods in order to make them finally prepared in a short period of time. But definitely via our suppliers of the semi-processed products, we work with a number of small farmers and suppliers, and we try to build the vertically integrated structure. So we trace the supply chain, and we, in majority of the cases, we know well from whom the initial raw material came from, and this is the area where many of these small and medium-sized enterprises are involved. I think that now it is a time of building vertically integrated structures of partnership and long-term cooperation. So what I would suggest small and medium-sized enterprises is to build this partnership relationship with bigger companies, with bigger suppliers, because during the crisis times, this is a safe harbor. Because during the peaceful times, as we are using already the wartime and peaceful time terms, definitely sometimes doing your independent business is more convenient from the price point and the margins point. But during the crisis times, stability and being part of a wider circle of strong companies is an important alternative. So I would suggest to do it both ways. To do it on your own is to look for your own ways of selling your services to the final customer, but at the same time to be an associate of a bigger vertically integrated companies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. So I'm sure we'll have questions from the audience. We'll come to that just in a couple of minutes. Now I would like to give a floor to Marina Tatarskaya because Ferrero is a great brand. I mean, you can hardly find the person who doesn't like Ferrero, because I think it's such a great company and tasty products and fancy advertising and whatnot. So we discussed yesterday with Marina, you know, how different it is right now for Ferrero to communicate, and I was happy to learn that of course there were changes in communication, but very minor. Nothing really changed dramatically. So Marina, if you can share your experience as a representative of FMCG company on how quickly you were able to adapt to new circumstances.
Thank you, Anna. And once again, good morning to everyone who has joined our event. And indeed, it is very interesting to continue the discussion, because our first expert and speaker did very good and I would say profound remarks already, which I don't have much to add. And thank you, Gareth, for that, because what you were saying about business continuity, about importance to continue invest in advertising, and about necessity for, especially it is very much true for FMCG sector, to continue communication with consumers. And this is about advertising. It's not fully our job as PR and communication. I will cover this topic a little bit later, but I just wanted to give my, let's say, feedback and remark on that, because I think it's very right thing when we discuss current situation, we take this perspective of, let's say, last 20 years, because indeed many companies who are here today with us, and the same about Association of European Businesses, 25 years in Russia, which I also represent today, many crises have been already lived, right? So 1998, we remember, well, it was 2008-9, and then 2014, and indeed in each particular situation, it is a challenge for company, for brand, and still company continue business, continue to advertise, and continue to communicate. What is different now that this particular period of life where we are today, this is more and more digital. Yes, we all are now connecting online, and also this is the way we communicate mainly to our consumers when we speak about PR and communication. But this is not something which happened, let's say, last 6 months. For 2 years already at AIB and in many other let's say, professional communities, we've been discussing with a lot of enthusiasm that, wow, great, we go digital, everything is going digital, online media, so cool. So actually it was somehow prepared partly all what we are living now in terms of way we communicate. The only difference is that we as professionals, when we work, we used to speak to each other physically. We used to see each other during meeting rooms. And when we had our nice and very cozy events, Anna, with you last year, that was also physical meeting, and that was nice. But with our consumers, anyway, we were speaking, let's say, somehow online through TV advertising, through publications and media. And online media, it's already 89% of market of, let's say, media where we communicate. This is our channel. So from one hand, yes, indeed, there are a lot of changes. From other hand, it is not really change. It's somehow continuity, and it's historical development of technological progress and so on. Of course, challenges due to COVID situation are existing, and all companies react in their way. From FMCG sector, and I think the colleague from McDonald's would, let's say, speak even more about it, that food donation became a very big trend in those past months. And once again, depending on the products and depending on the company policy that was given as support and contribution to community, but I would not say that was used as a PR tool, because definitely all responsible companies, they should never use charity as PR. Yes, they do charity because they believe it is their duty to act. And I would say that as if we speak about us as Ferrero, or what we could monitor from activities of many other FMCG companies, some things which could be done were put on hold because it was not, let's say, up to date, not corresponding to the moment, but instead companies did some, let's say, extra social activities. That was probably one of the particularities which we could observe all. And once again, what was important, and I know this is very much true about Ferrero, but probably also for other companies, we should never benefit out of crisis situation. So those companies who were trying to use, like what we call in PR, hype, yes, when just to use the situation to highlight something, that would not be the right thing to do. And for me, I didn't see many serious big brands who did. So that's about, let's say, general reactions and general key points. About budget, because you were touching in your agenda point of efficiency and budget priorities. I would say indeed, and this is quite obvious, we majority of companies could not physically do any events, so for PR and community the same, so all offline events were put on hold, but instead we are developing our online communication skills, not only like distributing press release and putting our news on air, but also how we contact our stakeholders, how we promote corporate achievements through online conferences. And this is a kind of new trend which gives us good opportunities. And here I would support my colleague from McDonald's, and this is indeed opportunity for us. The same we did at AIB, because when we participate physically, it is like one number of people who can physically be in this place in this particular moment. But if it is online conference, you can connect from other city, even from other country, and still participate and exchange new ideas with your colleagues. And this is really good for us as professional community, and definitely we can develop this point further. So for me, that would be the most, let's say, key points which I would like to note. And if you have any additional comments, we can discuss a bit more.
Marina, thank you very much. It's really valuable. Look, I would like to ask our participants to raise their hands in case they want to participate in Q&A session. We have a first question to Gareth. So I will read it. Unfortunately, I don't have the name. It is Andrew V. But the comment and the question is the following. The first presentation was insightful and a good approach for consumer marketing. For B2B, would it be a good idea to build a brand that demonstrates that the company is adopting to digital transformation to address global threats in order to build confidence and credibility with customers? This is the question. Gareth,
yeah, so in business to business to build digital competence.
Would you like me to
I don't
repeat,
really
or you
understand the
could
question.
catch it?
Yeah, try. Was it in Russian or English originally?
In English, in English.
Right. So you're not translating.
Okay, so the first presentation was insightful. For B2B, business to business, would it be a good idea to build a brand that demonstrates that the company is adopting to digital transformation to address global threats in order to build confidence and credibility with customers?
No.
It wouldn't be a good idea?
I don't believe in digital at all as building brands. I've seen no evidence. Anyone out there has any evidence of a successful brand building through digital? It's the biggest waste of money, the biggest contract we've seen in the last 30 years. I put it this way: if I said to you there's a new medium that reaches more people than television every day, it's available in their cars, in their offices, at home, over breakfast. It's a fantastic new media. You would all rush to use it. It's called radio, and we don't use it because it's no good at building brands. And digital is no good at building brands. If anyone has an example of a great brand built through digital, I'd love to hear about it. I saw no evidence.
Okay, Andrey, would you like to comment on that?
Well, we are doing a lot in digital. I agree with Gareth.
Wasting a lot of money,
partly. Yeah, no, that's true. But today we cannot avoid. Yes, we do it in parallel ways. Yes, of course, and we cannot avoid adjusting, yes, to the trends of the market here. So digital is definitely necessary because it helps some information, yes, to come quicker and to have wider extent. Yes, the new generation, yes, because now we live and many of our customers, or majority of our customers, and even our employees are young people. Yes, many of them are students, and they live in the new world compared to to the world of some 20 or 30 years ago. Yeah, so we need to take it into account. But definitely, Gareth, I agree with you that it should not be just completely compensated, or it should not compensate completely as the traditional ways of communication, of warmth and heartfulness of doing businesses, of providing services. So I think that for the next 10, 20 years, it will be split between the two trends, the traditional ways of communication and the new, more digital channels of communication. And we need to be adapted, yes, to both of them and to be effective, but keeping the traditional ways of doing business and of communicating.
Thank you, Andrey. You know, I have an identification of the name of our participant who asked this question. It is Andrey Veris, General Director of Lyona LLC. Look, I can see as our attendees a number of representatives from the financial sector, and I would really love to hear the experience in communication of experts involved in financial sector.
If I may, while we wait for the speaker, just if I may give little comments, Marina Tatarskaya.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, actually, this is discussion is really, it's interesting, and it's very, let's say, it's pretty hot topic in professional community, but I think sometimes it reminds me there was discussion when cinema was invented, that everyone was saying now theater will die, and we continue to enjoy both theater and cinema. And so a little bit overestimating new channel, it's normal for human human population to accept with enthusiasm a new way of transmitting messages. But I think the right approach would be the channel mix for communication, both for advertising and also for our corporate and brand communication. So is there where we can find our audience, yes, our consumers, if we speak about marketing or about our stakeholders, and also through those channels which they use. So if we target those groups of population who are in digital world, we would target them through digital channels. In Russia, still, well, I'm not big expert in advertising, it's not my direct job now, but what I know from my colleagues, in Russia, TV is still the cheapest cost per contact. So definitely, if we speak about the FMCG sector, it is the most, let's say, effective if we want to pass the message which are for those people who are watching TV. If they don't watch TV, no need to advertise there. And the same with advertising. Social media, of course, and bloggers, sometimes people say now they will replace normal media. Not fully true, because professional media is always professional media, and bloggers is just bloggers. So for FMCG, bloggers can be additional channel to communicate with within our PR plan, and we use them. But still, we cannot substitute professional expertise of normal journalist from social media person who is not giving you any responsibility from what is published. So common sense should be and balance always taken into account. Just little comment I want.
Okay, well, colleagues, I would like to draw your attention once again to communication and chat. We sent you the link to our questionnaire, so if you can take your time right now or later on to fill out the questionnaire, that would be great. We would really appreciate that. Also, if you would like to ask question right now, it is the right time to do that. Just raise your hand, write in the chat, and just let us know that you have a question. Now, I would like to, so that we would know what is next. As soon as our business part is over, we are going to have a small tour of Russian gallery. It's a new project which exists for about a year. It is called Art Office Gallery FEDINI. They are hosters of Art Manifest Good Utro exhibition of Russian artist Nikolay Kuznetsov. We're going to have the founder and the head of the gallery, Alexander FEDINI, very soon. So if you would like to join us for this tour, we would be happy to go through the tour. Now, again, if you have any questions, please go ahead right now, or you can do that after that, and we will share the questions with our speakers. Another thing is, we would really like to experiment and use this opportunity for networking. So in case you see somebody in the list, in the list of attendees, you would like to sort of to meet with them. So what we'll do, just identify that, and we will make sure we will introduce you to those people, and you will enjoy networking opportunities. Now we have another question to our speakers from Campbell Sherlow. I'm sorry if I misspell your name. The question is the following: if digital is no good for brand building, what at the moment is the best way to build brand for a whiskey brand for sale in supermarket setting? Great question. Getting on shelf was first step, but what plan can be used to get more consumers to buy and buy again? Testings? Gareth?
Oh, sorry. Technical, digital.
Digital.
Yeah, I can repeat the question if you'd like.
No, it was about what should we use if digital doesn't work?
Yes, if digital is no good, so what is the best way to build brand for whiskey?
For what? For whiskey?
For whiskey, yes.
Fans on TV, yeah.
As in Scottish whiskey. I'm Scottish.
Okay, let's talk about Scottish whiskey.
Well, there's Japanese whiskey and American whiskey. Well, I mean, there is no correct way to build a brand. I mean, for instance, Procter & Gamble, who are very successful, have never really used posters very much, despite the fact that they're incredibly successful in building brands for, Coca-Cola. Wrigley have used posters. Master Foods, who are also an American company, have used a lot of posters historically. Zara is a fantastic clothing brand that's never used advertising at all. The head of Zara famously doesn't believe in advertising, and perhaps he's right. So it really depends on which brand you're involved in. For brands like whiskey, which are very much about personality and it's just pure marketing, then posters have always been fantastic to build these giant brands, such as Coca-Cola. All the beer brands have used posters. Guinness has been very successful in that way. The Economist magazine famously used posters to build their brand. In some markets, cinema's good, but it never really has a high enough reach. If you're not allowed on television, magazines are always good for building the character of brands such as whiskey. It really does depend, on the specific, example. And as I say, there's always counter examples, as I say, with Zara, who don't advertise at all. So really, I would need to see, what the client was, what the specific whiskey was. It an American whiskey, a Scottish whiskey, even a Russian whiskey, like Samagon?
Andrey, would you like to add anything about?
Well, I'd like to, yes, but as I'm not a marketing person, yes, or not a salesperson, yes, I'm either a supply chain director of or GR director. I think that again, yes, it is a matter of personality. So we, first of all, you need to do things that you are doing with enthusiasm, with heart, and it has to be well done. So that's what I'm telling always to my children. Yes, if you want to make your career or to build yourself, thinking about some material outcome out of it, you will never achieve it. So you need to think what you are the best in, to identify your competitive advantages and to make stress on it. So if you see and if you are sure and you are enthusiastic about doing things well, then definitely it should provide results. When there is a will, there is a way, and the ways can be different. And in each of the cases, and that's where I again agree with Gareth, because they're completely different things. Yes, there are some whiskies, for example, which are massive. If it's Johnny Walker, yes, of course, even the advertising company, though I'm not an expert in advertising, there should be a completely different approach in advertising campaign of Johnny Walker compared to some Scottish whiskey individual taste that is oriented to some very specific audience, to the connoisseurs of this product, and the ways should be different. That's why the question is generic. That's why the answer is a kind of generic again. But you need to do it with your heart and with your enthusiasm, and you have to be optimist and believer in achieving the goal, and to make your product liked, loved by the final customer. And if you do it from the very beginning in the right way, yes, you will definitely achieve the result.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I guess we tried a couple of other attendees to comment. I don't know. We are waiting for their response. No response to the point right now. Well, thank you very much, Gareth, Andrey, for your wonderful presentations. Again, if we have questions after the meeting, if that's okay with you, we will address them to you online. So right now, I would like to give a floor to Alexander FEDINI. You can see that he's in the list of panelists at the moment. Александр?
Да.
Мы вас видим. Прекрасно.
Нас видите?
Прекрасно.
Good morning.
Okay, this part will be in Russian. Alexander FEDINI, as I said, he's the founder and the head of the art office gallery FEDINI. Our guests, please stay with us and enjoy the tour and useful information about the cultural initiative of FEDINI Gallery. Please, Александр, пожалуйста, рады представить вас. Будем признательны за интересный тур по вашей экспозиции.
Спасибо всем. Бонжур всем. Или, как у нас говорят в галерее, good утро. Почему good утро? Потому что это наш проект. Мы, как молодая галерея, начали именно с этого проекта, потому что он об изменениях, которые происходят в мире, либо изменения, которые происходят каждое утро у каждого человека. И это называется арт-манифест Николая Кузнецова, тольяттинского художника, который является нашим резидентом. Почему арт-манифест? Потому что это призыв. Николай хочет призвать через искусство, чтобы человек обратил на себя внимание, и, стоя перед зеркалом, он задался вопросом, что он может сделать сегодня, чтобы стать лучше, либо чтобы стало лучше его семья, его дом, его страна, либо его компания. Вот. Об этом нам расскажет наш куратор Анастасия Дмитриенко. И я предлагаю посмотреть сейчас видео.
Спасибо большое.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Анастасия Дмитренко, я
Погромче.
куратор галереи FEDINI. Я сейчас вам проведу мини-тур по нашей текущей экспозиции. Как уже сказал Александр, в данный момент у нас проходит персональная выставка тольяттского художника Николая Кузнецова. Название «Гудутра» произошло от одноименного портрета художника, автопортрета. История создания портрета связана с личной переживанием драмы художника, в результате которой он решил сбрить бороду, а также отрезать себе костичку, которую носил на протяжении 25 лет. И в тот момент, когда он увидел себя в зеркале, в пене, он решил, что это может послужить сюжетом для произведений, которые бы говорили о смене личных парадигм, то есть о моментах, которые бывают в жизни любого человека и, безусловно, делают его лучше в духовном плане. Художник как бы заявляет, надо меняться, надо не бояться меняться. Уже мир после коронавирусной инфекции не будет прежним, и как бы мы должны приспосабливаться к этому миру. В результате коллаборации галереи FEDINI и Николая Кузнецова автопортрет вылился в ряд портретов известных исторических личностей, которые в своей жизни у них был тоже личный кризис, но они справились с ним и вышли из него победителями. Так, сейчас мы видим портрет Стива Джобса. Безусловно, успешный человек, добившийся больших высот, и мы как бы его застаем в момент его бритья, и по глазам видно, что он сосредоточен, ведет внутренний монолог. Как-то Стив Джобс сказал такую фразу: «Я смотрю в зеркало каждое утро и спрашиваю себя, если бы сегодняшний день был последним в моей жизни, захотел бы я сделать то, что собираюсь сделать сегодня». И как только ответа нет на протяжении нескольких дней подряд, я понимал, что надо что-то менять. Эта фраза является основополагающей у нашего проекта. Также у нас представлен портрет российского журналиста Познера. Мы как бы застаем его немного врасплох, он немного сметен. При помощи смелой композиции, обрезки изображения сверху и снизу происходит эффект разговора глаза в глаза. И да, это очень интересный эффект. Да, и как бы очень много передается при помощи глаз, интеллект, который присущ этому человеку. Также у нас...
Можно немножко погромче?
Да.
Спасибо.
Также у нас в экспозиции присутствует женский портрет. Это современная художница, куратор Айдан Салахова. В ее жизни был такой период, когда она решила полностью измениться кардинально и побрилась на лысо. Мне кажется, художнику удалось показать именно вот эту дерзость, самоуверенность, которая присуща Айдан. Как вы уже заметили, основополагающим и смысловым компонентом всех наших, объединяющим компонентом всех портретов является пена для бритья. Она придает как бы классическим портретам нотку современности. Также у нас представлен портрет Че Гевары. Художник Николай изображает как бы его в утро, когда он решил стать революционером. Видно, что он самоуверен и верит в свое дело. Также у нас представлена такая стена личности. Каждый посетитель нашей галереи может оставить на ней имя человека, которого он считает достойным быть причастным к нашему проекту, и, возможно, именно это имя возьмет и воплотит в жизнь портрет этого человека, нарисует наш художник в дальнейшем, потому что наш проект, он со знаком бесконечности, он будет добавляться и добавляться новыми портретами известных людей. На этой стене у нас представлены два портрета, безусловно, успешных в своей сфере, каждый в своей сфере людей. Это Григорий Лепс, певец, и Андрей Малахов, журналист. В их моментах, в их жизни были тоже моменты такого личных кризисов, и они вышли, безусловно, из них победителями, добились больших высот. И, мне кажется, художнику получилось запечатлеть их в таких достаточно свойственных для них позах, и это как бы придает такую живость данному произведению. Вот у нас еще представлен портрет Альберта Эйнштейна. Как-то утром ему предложили сделать операцию на сосуды, и он отказался от нее. Решил, что он уже достаточно много сделал, и уже пора уйти. И это совпадало, его решение не продлило ему жизнь, но совпадало с его внутренними принципами. Он считал, что продлевать искусственно себе жизнь — это безвкусно и не нужно. Так, перейдем к другим портретам нашей экспозиции. Это Илон Маск. Мне кажется, самый успешный в данный момент человек на Земле, основатель компании Space. И как бы художник хочет этим портретом передать вот этот момент, когда успешный человек смотрит на себя в зеркало утром, он успешный, он верит в свое будущее и даже может продумывать новые идеи, чтобы еще где-нибудь еще сделать, чтобы еще колонизировать Марс, Юпитер. Вот, мне кажется, очень хорошо удалось передать сущность человека нашему художнику. Последний портрет нашей экспозиции — певица Кончита Вурст. Тоже в одно утро приняла решение признаться всем в своей ориентации, хотя это решение давалось ей нелегко, потому что она жила в такой маленькой деревне, которому все были к этому не готовы морально. Это, конечно, для нее послужило переломным утром. Она понимала, что ее жизнь уже не будет прежней, но все-таки она пошла на этот шаг, потому что кто, если не она? Она понимала, что она должна заявить о таких же людях, как она, которые испытывают так же, как она, какие-то внутренние изменения, но она не боится признаться всем в этом. Я, наверное, заканчиваю нашу мини-экскурсию. Хочу пригласить вас в нашу галерею, пожелать всем good утра, чтобы ваше каждое утро было очень добрым. И также выставка у нас это продлится до 30 ноября. Дальше у нас будет уже групповая выставка наших резидентов, 5-го, которая откроется. Следите за нами в социальных сетях, подписывайтесь на нас. Добро пожаловать и до свидания.
Спасибо вам большое, спасибо, Анастасия, Александр. У нас был такой эксперимент проведения виртуальной экскурсии, продолжение нашей традиции совмещения деловой программы и культурной программы. Если кто-то захочет организовать ну, такой частный тур для партнеров, то мы будем рады представить вас Александру Федини, и убеждена, коллеги с удовольствием организуют подобный тур. Еще раз всем большое спасибо за участие, за время, за вклад. Будем рады видеть вас в будущем в эфире наших следующих встреч. Я желаю всем отличного дня, хорошего настроения, оптимизма. Как говорила Голда Меир, мы не можем себе позволить быть пессимистами, поэтому всем оптимизма, веры в будущее, возможности. Желаю всем найти свою правильную нишу в нынешней ситуации.
Анна, большое спасибо. И хочу тоже поблагодарить со своей стороны организаторов мероприятий. Очень ценим ваши усилия создать не только профессиональное, но и культурное пространство для общения и взаимодействия. Жду с нетерпением возможности встретиться лично с вами и с коллегами.
Спасибо
большое. Да, до свидания.
Счастливо.
Я тоже хотела бы, если можно, два слова сказать.
Да, Катерина.
Большое спасибо за участие. Я хотела бы сказать от нас, от польского клуба, спасибо за энтузиазм, идею и организацию. Было видно и прекрасно, что ситуация нам позволяет общаться, находясь в разных городах и странах, хотя сложно для многих стало коммуницировать. Мы очень рады, что все мы продолжаем оставаться на связи. И спасибо за поддержку взаимную.
Да, я тебе хотела добавить, что это прям вот такой teamwork. Мы с коллегами вчера были на связи. Катерина мне, по-моему, где-то в 12 часов ночи писала последнее сообщение. Так что огромное спасибо всем. Каждый внес свой вклад. И это действительно очень приятно быть вот частью этого комьюнити. Так что спасибо всем.